Hello guys, welcome to another video for 3D Studio Max. If this is your first time joining me on this stream, I'm basically creating a series of 3D tutorials um, starting from the scratch. So whoever's joining as a beginner, you're very welcome. Um, Today we're going to be designing a simple 3D model, and basically the idea is to be able to take you around a few tools within 3D Studio Max, and with those tools basically you could transfer those knowledge to other types of things or other types of projects that you intend to. So yeah, we are going to be creating a 3D model, and it's basically the head of this character from Super Mario. Hopefully it's not too complex to follow, but um, let's get on anyways. Um, as usual, my name is Tolu, and I do media, I do videos, designs, 3D art, and I'm your favorite handy guy. Um, I have a starter scene for you already, so just going to cut to that, and basically this is to quickly run you through the interface if you haven't used 3D Studio Max before. So if this is your first time, whenever you launch 3D Studio Max, it gives you this interface, and it has a quad view. Usually it's going to be empty. I created this for you. So there's going to be this grid there, of course. We're going to have this as your front view. You have this as your orthogonal views, which is your front, the top, the left, and this is your perspective. Your perspective shouldn't be too confusing. Um, it's basically what you're seeing in this other viewport. So this is your left. This is what you're seeing here, top here, and front on this side. Um, Sometimes you may see this view, which is an expanded or a full view of one of those views. So this is going to be a perspective. This sometimes is what you see in a lot of 3D applications, and sometimes you're just going to get the quad view. So don't get lost if you see any of them. And as usual, in most of them, you could simply just change the view you're looking at. So you could change to a camera view, light view, perspective, back, left, right, and so on and so forth. And the next thing you want to quickly know is how to pan. I'm using my scroll, that's the middle button of the mouse, and how to orbit. I'm doing this by using the same middle button and my Alt key on the keyboard. And the last is the zoom. Simple. I just use the scroll button to do that. You could find all that here, which is the pan, the orbit, and the zoom. And finally, you want to know how to move around items, which will be your select and move, select and rotate, and finally select and scale. Now it would do you well to know the shortcuts. Those tools are reached by W, E, and R. So 1, 2, 3 right up here. So you have your select and scale represented by W, tooltips enabled. So when you have your mouse over, you're going to have um, a name or a tag what that um, tool does. So select is represented by W, this is E, and select and scale is R. So most times whenever you have a tiny triangle or dot at the very edge like this, it means you could pull out extra tools, or not extra tools, it's extra variation of the same tool. All right, so now that you know how to manipulate or get around your scene, let me reset this and let's start our head modeling. So just going to overlay this one more time. This is what we want to do, and it's the head. And I can, there's nothing as good as you wanting to model and having an actual um, reference to look at when you're walking. So I'll just say that make sure you have a form of reference. Even if you're creating something new, you want to sort of like gather um, some reference, some point of reference, something to guide you with your creation. Anyways, so this is what we want to create, and I can see it's let's call it a sphere. Yeah. So the base of our model is going to be a sphere, and I'm creating just the head, by the way. So the base of the head is just a sphere, and the actual, or rather, the base of the cap is kind of like a sphere, and the actual head is not far from it. So let's start. Um, by the way, this is your creation panel. This is where you get all your basic geometry, and you have all the options right there, and shapes, lights, cameras, and so on. So basically for this tutorial, we're going to spend perhaps just like 1 minute here. So I'm going to create a sphere. Okay, I'm going to set this down on. Now, whenever you're modeling, you want to try as much as possible to use your orthogonal views. This actually helps you to align things easily. There's this rookie mistake where people just stay in their perspective. And not that you can't do anything there. It's just sometimes you you know put an item in a certain spot, and you feel it's right there already, only for you to find out when you move around that it's not exactly where you want it to be. All right, so the character we're creating is not a complete sphere, so I'm just um, going to squash this a little bit. So I'm going to convert this to an editable poly. You could use an editable mesh. It's similar. So to be able to manipulate any geometry, you need to convert it to an editable poly. This allows you access to the sub-level of any um, any geometry. So you have your vertex, your edge, the border usually will be an open edge, and you have a polygon, which I selected before, and lastly is element. Element selects the whole geometry, because there's some models that are going to have a combination of geometries. So the elements allows you to select each of the elements within the model. So going to, I've converted this. So I need just the top half or a little bit more of this. So I'm going to start by selecting this and take it up. I need it to go further. Now, there are shorter ways of going about what I'm doing, or quicker ways. And I'm basically trying to take things step by step, or would I say I take a little bit of a long journey or longer route to do stuff, just to be able to select different tools and sort of like give you an insight on what those tools can do. For this, for example, I could enable soft edge and pinch this in a little. I think that's too much. Let's reduce this a little bit and squash this in a little bit. And I think I'm getting there. Now I'm seeing just the vertex, and if I select edge, just the edge I select, but I want to continuously seeing, the edges of this geometry. So I'm going to come to standard right here. No, sorry, default shading. I'm just going to click on that. I have edged faces, so I'm going to enable this and see all this in my perspective viewport. So I'm going to leave this as this for now, and I'm going to replicate. I'm going to deselect that. I'm going to replicate this, and I could just hold my shift and drag this down, and I have a new copy. So I could decide to have a copy, an instance, or a reference. The difference between the instance and the reference is for the instance, every change you make to the original copy or new copy or vice versa, it affects both copies. While the reference, the original copy affects the new, but the new does not affect the original. I hope I got that right. So one copy, and I could hit OK. So I have two, or I have a copy already. So, but I could also do this. I'm going to undo that. I have a mirror up here. I could click on mirror, and it gives you this dialog box. And same, or would I say similar process? So I'm just gonna say copy. I don't want instance or reference. And the difference here is it gives me the option to mirror my new copy and of course offset it. So I have my X, I could pick my Y, I could tell there's nothing different. And if I pick my Z, I can see that I have a new copy that has been turned upside down. So if you also take note of this select and move gizmo, just going to hit OK, and I'm going to increase this for you to see properly. You can see the Z axis and the X and the Y. You notice that's all labeled. So I'm just going to take that down. Oh, by the way, I did that by hitting the plus and the minus, or the minus rather. Plus, of course, to make it bigger, and minus to make it smaller. Excuse me. So if this is your first time joining my channel, please do hit the subscribe button. Hopefully you're going to get something valuable from my channel. So encourage me by subscribing and hitting the bell icon, of course, so that you know when a new video is being uploaded or when a live stream is coming on. So let's get back. So I have a copy, and of course the head isn't as big as that. I'm going to scale this down right about there. I'll bring this down just a tad bit. Something like this. Okay, so gotta start this up and just going to get on my reference again and okay, just going to reduce the head just a little bit more. Scale this. Don't forget I'm using the shortcuts for the select and move, select and rotate, and select and scale, which is W, E, and R. Working with shortcuts allows you to walk a little bit faster. So I'm going to I'm going to increase now while scaling or moving or rotating rather. It's important to understand what you're doing, and I'm going to use the scale for example. So if I'm scaling from this perspective viewport, which is very important. I mean, the reason why I say it's also nice to have your quad view in view. If you have your X and Y, for example, in the top viewport, and if I scale here, you would notice that I can scale along X and Y, and if you look at your left and your front, you would notice that you're not having a uniform scale, which sort of like in this case deforms your object. So also the same thing, if I do this in the front, you would notice that it deforms it along the left and the right. And the top view, you could also say you've done something wrong. So I'm going to undo this, and the best way to scale for uniform is to reach for the middle right here. If you look at this in the perspective, you can find out that this reaches out to all the axis of the object. So I'm going to scale, yeah. So I could adjust this like this or like so, and I'm going to reach out for sublevel vertex, and I'm going to what now? I'm gonna bring the scale this along just the X and the Y. So I want this a little bit out. I still have my soft selection enabled, as you can see, and this basically allows you to ease out your selection, or when you're manipulating your selection. What it simply means is, if I have my soft selection on, it allows a soft pull or push wherever you need it. And if I undo this, you would notice that this just has this sharp effect on the object. So I'm going to undo that, and you could have your soft selection on, or you could decide not to have it on, but this just allows this selection or process easy. And I'm also hoping that with time you'd have questions for this. You have questions rather, and you have to just post them in the comment section, and I would try my best to get to them, and kind of like hoping that those questions would start to form, what I say, the basis of um, newer streams. Okay. And sometimes when you make movements that you didn't intend to make, just hit the undo just to make sure it doesn't save, or rather stay. Okay, so I'm going to leave that sub level, and I think we have a base model already. Right, let's see. And yeah, I guess. So let's get on. I think the base model is done already. Um, uh, the eye can be created in a lot of ways, but I'm just going to create a shape just so that you know how to create one. I'm going to create a shape like so. I'm going to use my front view. Just going to, well, let's do a circle. And I'm going to squash this in by using the scale. Now, if you look at the model, you would find out that this is, it's an oval, but it's eased out on the edges. So I'm just going to reach out for, I'm just going to convert this into an editable item, and lines and shapes are called splines within 3D Max. So I'm going to convert this to an editable spline and reach for the sub level, which is the vertex sub level. I'm going to select these two, and I'm going to ease this out by refining those points. I'm going to use fillet. I'm just going to take this up. Okay, so done that. Let's just repeat that for in case you didn't catch that. Undo. Okay, so I'm going to select that one more time. Reach for fillet on this part of the screen. I'm just going to use the arrow, increase this once. Okay, so I'm going to pull this apart. Just going to select the top half, and no, sorry, pull this upwards. Still make sure there's a little bit of a curve there, and also do that for the bottom. Take this up slightly, and I'm going to use, as you can see in your perspective view, this is just, sometimes you would try to move around, and if you're still in the sub-object level, you might not be able to do anything. So I'm going to leave that sub-object level. Oh, by the way, my shortcuts for going into the sub-levels, which is, you can see it's number 1, 2, 3. So 1 for vertex, 2 for segment, and 3 for the spline level. If you're using the geometry, let's hit the geometry. Okay, so we have the 1 for vertex, 2 for edge, 3 for border, and 4 for polygon. 5 won't work for, oh, that's 5 there. Anyways, so I leave the sub object there, jump back to the spline, and I'm going to add a modifier, which is the bevel modifier. I treated this in another tutorial previously, so you could go through the channel to find that out. All right, so I've added the bevel, and I've given it some surface, and I'm going to give it the height at the middle level, which is level 2. Give it, let's say, 2. And we have some depth now. Just going to select that and hit Z to zoom in on the item, just within the perspective viewport. All right, so I think that thickness is just too much though. I'm just going to use 1. And I'm going to add some outline. I'll do that at level 3. I'm going to use 0.2, or let's say 0.3. And I'm going to use minus 0.3 also. Alright, so we have this creased edge at this level 3, and I could add a bit more segment to it. The thing about 3D generally, if you're just starting out, and if your system isn't built to handle much stress, it's very, very important that you do not create polygons. And what I mean by polygons are each of these boxes that you see. Do not create polygons that you do not need. This we are working on right here is still pretty light, so it shouldn't give you any problem, and that's why I haven't been paying attention to those polygons. But even when creating, for example, the sphere, I could have created this and reduced this to, for example, about 18, and you notice that, okay, of course you notice the edges, but I'm just going to take this a little bit up, and I noticed that at around this point, I think my model is fairly okay, and you would notice that as opposed to 32 segments that I use here, this also gives me a fairly good result without having as much polygon. I'm just going to delete that and get back to all right, sorry you lost me there for a second. Okay, so we're back here. I want to place the eye right here in front, and I'm just going to duplicate. Now I'm just going to measure by the different ways of, as usual. I could have done the copy, and I also could have used the mirror option, and even the mirror option, I didn't use that option earlier. The mirror option actually allows you to select copy. I want it along the same axis, and I could offset it to whatever position I wanted it to be. And I hit OK. All right, but I do not want that in the middle. I'm going to undo that first. And from my left, this is my front. I'm just going to leave that in place. I'm going to use my left view and put this slightly farther. Gonna take this slightly in, and I'm going to adjust the head just a little bit more. I still have my soft selection selected. You can deselect that if you want. Increase here also. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do both at once. Okay, so this is my side view. I get back to the front, and if you notice this gizmo right here, this helps you to go back to your default perspective view. You could hit the front, the top, and the two sides. This is left, and this is the back, and so on and so forth. So the way I'm just going to measure this, and let me see my I'm just creating this from I'm not able to see the two sides or the full front view of the head. All right, so I think the eyes are pretty wide apart, so I'm just going to sorry, you lost me there again. So I'm just going to I'm going to set this. I'm just going to use this line here and sort of like take it all the way around at about the same distance on the other side. I think it's slightly a little bit more wide. Oh, I think that's fine. Okay, so I can also see from my perspective that the eye is not directly on the model, so I'm just going to take this slightly backwards, and I'm going to roll this in simply by doing a rotate, and I'm going to snap this so that I know exactly how many degrees I'm working with, and this is the snap here. Snap, I'm going to enable the snap, and the shortcut is A, and so this allows me basically to, if you'd notice if you notice down here, or the tooltip while I'm rotating, you notice it's moving in incrementals of 5 degrees. So 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. I can see from my top viewport, I think I'm aligned already. So I'm just going to sort of like push this back a little bit more. And I'm going to come here and either just delete and replicate this guy, or I simply just fix in a 25-degree rotation and pull this back also. This is not a perfect measurement, but it works. All right, so we have our base model. Now, without, I'm going to take out this grid by hitting G. without texturing, I'm just going to, now what color do we have on our model? We have white and blue. Without texturing, let's just give this a color, and you can see that without going far, we have our base model already. Okay, so now we just need to add a smile. I knew I moved something. And this is why it's not always good to pay attention just to your perspective view. So I'm going to undo. Yeah. All right, so I have a white, I have so skin color, and the eye. I'm gonna use black. No, is that me using black? Oh, that's the color we have there. It's black. All right, so what next? All right, so I can see that we have a smile as wide as the two eyes. It's eye to eye, basically. So let's tear up this mesh. Say about here all the way to, I think we could use this. That's not bad. Okay, so I'm going to create a simple mouth by opening up these edges. I'm going to deselect my soft selection, completely useless at this point. So I'm going to open up the selected edge by splitting. I've selected the edge already, if you notice this from the perspective on the front. And I'm going to split this open. Now it's not immediately visible, but I'm sure you could tell something changed after I hit split. So I'm going to take this up slightly, select the edges slightly more, and we have our mouth open, and do select this two instead, so it's a little bit uniform. So I have access to this bottom part. Take this apart. Now while adjusting this, I'm also going to pay attention to my left viewport, and adjust this to align, align like this. Right, so going to reach for the vertex, take this slightly down, take the two side. Now it's looking like a smile. All right, so of course you can make this broader however way you want. Okay, so to handle the inside of the mouth, I think I'm just going to bring this vertex down a little bit more. And I mentioned border earlier. It's for open edges, and this is an open edge, so this is a border. And I could simply do something like this. To extrude an edge, all I have to do is I could hold my shift and I could scale inwards like this, pull this in, and I could scale a little bit more and scale that like so, a little bit out. Okay, so if I were to add something called nums toggle to this, here's what we have. I think the mouth should have been wider. I remove the mouse toggle, nums toggle, and I'm going to let's see how far back I can get this. I'm just going to undo. I think I'd like to split it all the way down here. So I'm just going to take this edge right here, split. What do we have? Does it look good or nay? Right. Now, to be able to select so what's in the forefront without mistakenly selecting what's at the back, that's maybe you trying to select yeah, that was it just now. You're trying to select the vertex here and move it without affecting the back, because if you notice from the top viewport, we have the vertex both back and front selected. So undo. You need to is it select or deselect? Now where's that at? Yeah, ignore back facing. So if I have a polygon, for example, I could say ignore back facing. So if I select here, it doesn't select the back. Same thing for all levels, actually. If you say ignore back facing, it helps you keep the back selections safe. So just going to bring this down. Use both of them. Let's pull that smile up. Now there's something called symmetry, and in creating a model that you are aware or you know that is the same thing on the two side, basically what you should do is create one half of it and use the symmetry modifier, somewhere here, yeah, symmetry modifier to duplicate or replicate the other half of that object. And you can use this very much, pretty much well within your modeling process, whereby you're able to create a symmetry of that object, and everything you're doing on this side automatically takes effect on the other side. Of course, I'm not doing this here, and like I said, I'm just trying to keep this as simple as possible. And can see this is going in, so I'm just going to select it and use scale to sort of like bring it out a little bit, and use the forward and bring it up. Just going to adjust this in to help that smile. I notice a deformation there, so I'm going to do the same, scale this slightly out. Now the thing with soft selection, sometimes it pulls too much than you need. So you can see it's affecting the top edge. So I'm just going to reduce the effect of it and allow it to come down a little bit. So just this a little bit. Add this selection. Okay, I think we have a wide enough smile. Okay, so to handle the inside of the mouth, I'm just going to meanwhile, you can undo your viewport movements. You can undo the sort of like, say I move it like this, I can undo that viewport movement. All right, so where was I? The inside of the mouth, I'm just going to create sphere, I guess, in there. Let's have this like this. I'm going to convert that to an editable poly and delete half the polygon. I'm going to do this from the side, and I think this should do. Hit delete, and I'm going to scale that down. And bring it forward. Now I'm not just going to scale this down, I'm also going to squash it. Okay, I want it to cover the whole width and length and depth of the mouth, so I'm just going to align that with the front viewport, and perhaps I'd rotate that slightly. And I definitely don't want it coming out this way, so I'm going to take a little bit backwards. Okay, I think we're almost there. Perhaps a little bit more non-uniform scale. You could just scale this up and bring this up this way. Back. Okay, so I think we're getting there. Let's have a color. Let's have something in the Stop pink. No. I'm going to use that. Now, because I'm seeing the inside of that sphere, that's kind of like why you are seeing it um, in a dark shade, basically. So to treat that, sure there's an option here somewhere, but there's also a modifier. I'm going to leave. Oh, okay, I'm already off that sub level. There are times when you're within the sub object level mode, and whatever modifier you apply affects only the selection. But of course, that's not for all modifiers. All right, so there is I'm off the sub level modifier. So there is uh, there's a modifier to flip normals. That's what it's called. So if it's not flip normal, it should be normal. So yeah, it's been flipped inside. No, not inside out, but outside in. So I can see the um, color here better. So oh sorry, and we could just add but really I think our base model is done, so I'm gonna add the eye. So I could use a cylinder, have it in this viewport. I'm just going to align it with this eye. Let's try 5. Just gonna fix that in. And I'm going to do the same. I don't want a copy, just mirror it, it's fine. And I'm going to change both colors to white. Okay, so we've got our base model. And if we were now, if you notice something with the mouth, it's just going to add some thickness to the mouth, which I cancelled that earlier. So I'm going to scale this. Just need to see, pull this backwards. I want to do that. Alright, so pull backwards. Reduce this a little bit. And push back a little bit more. Scale it a little bit up. Okay, so alright, that's much better. Okay, so if we were to add a basic texture to the hat, to the cap, we could use Photoshop, and we could create a simple texture to add into the curve of the character. So I think it's just basic dots. That's 1, 2, I believe that will be 4 around. So let's create something simple and let's add it just to create a complete, what did I say? Create a complete project. Okay. Close you, save changes. Yep. Oh, I thought I saved you before. Nope. Oops. Create a new document. And base color white, we have blue dots. So white is the base color, and I'm just going to have kind of have 4 of that, so spread them out. The lovely part about stuff like this is you could just tile it, but let's just create what we need. So I'm going to create this in a new layer, fill it with blue. Okay, so space that out. Hold my Alt, replicate this. Select both of them, reduce. Nope, I need a uniform reduction, so let's scale this down. So basically I want the same spacing, so okay. Sorry, that's my alarm. Okay, so I'm going to just select, and I'm going to scale this down. Nope, I wanted a uniform scale. So for this, I'm just going to sort of like have the same edges on these two sides should sort of like equal what's in the middle here. Anyway, so this is supposed to be just something quick to use. I'm gonna save this. You could use a Photoshop file, so just gonna save this as dotted cap, toad cap, and minimize. gonna drag this and simply just drop it on the hat. Now, of course, we can't see there are several ways of applying a material to an object. You could do this. I'm going to undo. And you could also hit M for material, or simply just bring up the material editor by clicking on the icon at the top of the page here. All right, so I could, yeah, excuse me. I could just drop this here and I can see the effect of it already. And if I need to manipulate, I could use the color picker here, pick the sky, and I have everything to manipulate here. So I can, my cap is ready. So I'm going to look at the model, the reference one more time. I can see that the dot is in the middle and we have two on the sides. Obviously, I'm sure one is at the back. So to balance that out, I could come into the material editor and find a way to move the material. So base color and offset it right there with the UV and offset it slightly up, and voila, we're done. So this is a simple 3D model. Just gonna change that to white. Or better still, let's have a nice background there by creating, let's just put a box behind it or a plane. Right, so here's our simple 3D model. I hope you've learned something from this, how to convert an item to an editable poly, how to manipulate or jump around your scene, um, creating basic objects, even basic texture, which we just did, and cutting, splitting, sub-object levels, and those few things that we have touched. Like I said, this is for beginners if you're just starting out. So you want to basically pick all those tools one by one and start sort of like transferring that knowledge to modeling your own stuff. So I hope, like I said, I hope you've learned something. If this is your first time on the channel, kindly kindly subscribe, hit the bell icon, drop in your comments if you have any, and hopefully I would get to them and do more live stream tutorials later on. So thank you for joining, and I'll be ending this in a bit, and hope you enjoyed this, and let's call it a day. All right, bye then.